Hello and welcome to the Pirates Fan Forum here on DK Pittsburgh Sports. I'm your host, Gary Morgan. With me, as always, my good friend Jim Stamm. How you doing, brother?
Man, just a little catch up on a couple things, Gary. My AC went out this week. Had a nice little bill from that. I got a pinched nerve in my neck, but fortunately, the Pirates are here to make it all better. So, good week overall,
You got that pinched nerve from being at the game watching balls fly over your head in the outfield, right? I mean, like
oh geez.
So that pinched nerve is kind of on the Pirates, right?
Everything in my life is on the Pirates right now.
All right. Hey, and returning to the show, good friend of ours, Eric. You know him as Longbeards on Twitter. Good dude, nice level-headed guy that kind of would rather spend time around a campfire than fighting with you on Twitter. So I figured let's get somebody in here that hasn't been oversaturated with everyone else's thoughts and see what somebody comes in out of the wild and thinks. Welcome back, Eric.
Hey, thanks. Appreciate it.
So, guys, rough series, right? Sure feels like a low water point. Pirates scored 23 runs in this series. They won 0 of 3. They started Mitch Keller, Jared Jones returning from the IL, and Paul Skeens. I would have to say that's not a typical outcome most of the time when you have that scenario. They score 23 runs with those 3 pitchers. You probably think you have a pretty good shot at winning those games. Here's the thing, though. You can't give up 41 runs in that same series.
If my math is correct.
Any of them.
Right. The math doesn't check out, actually.
Yeah. This is a team that probably just showed their GM they should be ready for making some changes, right? What do you think, Jim?
I mean, if there's a rock bottom so far in this whole thing, I think this is it, right, guys? You know what I mean? Like at least currently,
as compared to expectation, yes,
yeah.
It isn't going to feel like a 100-loss season no matter what, but it isn't going to feel good because you didn't think they should have a team that's anywhere near not beating that record last year.
Yeah, and I think too, they took 3 of 4 against the Reds. The last one was in dramatic fashion, right? And then so it's like they just can't get out of their own way. Like, that happens. You feel like, okay, you know what? They had their rough stretch, 3 out of 4 against the Reds. You got the Cubs at home for 3. You're rolling out every pitcher you have that you feel you have a darn good chance of winning with. And it just imploded. I mean, imploded. So you would think now they've got 3 against the Guardians at Cleveland. So, buckle up.
A pissed off Guardians team that just got boat raced by the Royals.
Right.
So I think they just got swept in a 4-game series against the Royals. So they're probably not too happy.
Sure. And they need these games, right? So, it's really interesting because I want to bookmark that loss and that series and see how this ends up. How does it finish out? Because you're going to see if they roll over and die. And, nothing would shock me right now with them. That's the thing. That was a crushing series and a crushing loss.
I mean, Eric, what a swing of emotions. You go from Yasmani Grandal having a walk-off and turning around and giving, and this is twice now that the vets have come in here on these 1-year contracts and given the fan a light scolding for not having their backs or maybe not believing the way they should anymore, right? And a lot of people liked it and took it as a cool slogan, but man, what they laid down right after that. I'm sorry, Yaz.
Yeah, a giant egg they laid. That was it was like Jim said. You come out of that the Red Series, coming in with the Cubs. You got your three best pitchers, and you think we should easily take 2 of 3. And it was rough. And I don't know where to blame. I don't know if the Cubs just had everyone's number or they just gave up. I don't know, but it was. And then yesterday's game was, you thought, all right, here we go. We're going to get one of these, score all those runs. I don't know about I don't know. Skeens being pulled after 5. I kind of questioned. He was only at 81, 82 pitches.
I think it was 86, but still, it's a
okay.
conversation. It's worth having the conversation. I can say it was hot. I mean, I get that it was really hot out. He wasn't really looking great. I mean,
no.
He had given up 3 runs and kind of worked through the innings that he got through too. And they are trying to watch his innings still. I guess I didn't mind when they were up 10-3, the decision to do it. But I have to admit, I sat here and I sat back and I went silent on social media because I just knew. I mean, and then when it was 10-7, I know I put out like the Pirates have actively been pissing this game away for 3 innings. Never thinking they'd actually fully come back.
Yeah, you just thought like they couldn't blow it as badly as they did, and they did. At first I was hoping they were going to give Skeens another inning, right? Just get that 6th inning in there. Maybe it's a quick inning, whatever. And then I thought to myself, you know what? It was super hot. I think Grandal left the game with some heat issues. Rowdy left the game. And then you've got to think about like 82 pitches. What are those 82 pitches like, right? Are they easy? Are they easier type, pitches, like he's not working as hard? That was probably a 95 pitch outing from Paul Skeens, given the way he was grinding a little bit. So in hindsight, I think that was the right move. You should never be blowing a game down 10-3, no matter what kind of decision you make. So just a disaster all the way around.
Let me try to put it this way, I guess, on this, because this is where I fall on pulling Skeens. If it were September 24th and they were tied for the last wild card and they were up 10-3 and Paul Skeens had given them 5 innings and kind of struggled through it, I think I would be in favor of him being pulled in that game. So I don't think it's because of where they are that I feel that way. I feel like you should be able to believe your bullpen can hand you 4 innings when they're well rested. That's what I think. And I think all of his major pieces that he likes to push were pretty well rested. So, I mean, like, I think I would have felt pretty good going into that game too, despite everything else. But yeah, I don't know, man. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, I want to dive back in on some Derek Shelton. I'm going to play some of his post-game comments because it's the first time I've ever heard him do something, Jim. I think it's the first time I've ever actually heard him mad.
Definitely.
And I'm kind of like, where was that?
At DK Pittsburgh Sports, we take pride in... At DK Pittsburgh Sports, we take pride in coverage that connects our city's fans to their favorite teams. Now, that connection's stronger than ever. Introducing our all-new state-of-the-art app. Find expert inside reporting and original podcasts. Check live box scores. Track the latest stats. Chat it up with our community of thousands of fans, all in one place. The new app from DK Pittsburgh Sports. Coverage that connects.
All right, welcome back to the Pirates Fan Forum here on DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network. Jim, that's where I want to start. We have a lot of things we want to cover with Oneil Cruz. That's going to be a fun conversation. But I want to wrap up this Cubs series because it felt like there should be ramifications for it one way or another, right? So I just want to play Derek Shelton's comments, and I'm going to do that. I'm going to let him speak for himself instead of me reading it.
But he did a good job. I mean, he struggled early, and gave up the runs, and then had to sit for 3 long innings because of the fact offensively we had a really good game, and then we extended the lead. I mean, that's a time where you should be able to take a guy out where you're trying to make sure that you're being thoughtful about his innings with the lead that we had, and that's a game we have to finish, and we didn't finish it. We have to cover. We have a 10-3 lead in the 7th. We have to cover the game, and it's frustrating. It's about as frustrated as I've been. I mean, we have got to execute. You cannot have a 10-3 game in the 7th inning and give up 11 runs. It's just, we got to be better.
Can you just wash it, or do you have to kind of?
I'm not washing it.
Yeah.
My concern level is we got to finish games. We look at the games we've lost in August, it's because we have not finished games. I mean, how many of these games have we had the lead?
Yeah.
How many of these games have we been 1 strike away, 1 pitch away? So yeah, we got to figure out how to finish games.
Do you peg that on anything? Is there complacency
No,
level?
there's no complacency. It's execution. We got to execute. We're not executing. If you don't execute at the end of games, you don't win games. That's what's happened to us in August. It's what we did a really good job of in June and July. So we need to figure it out.
I mean, boom. It's exactly what we've wanted him to be saying for months. Like that's the kind of thing we wanted to hear before. I want to hear the volcano's going to explode. Don't tell me why we should have known it exploded. Like I want to do a little bit of preventative maintenance for once, Eric. And these comments are cool. I'm glad, but are they too little too late? Because this is a series that loses a coach a job.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it is a little too late because, where was this when there was a 10-game losing streak? Look how many games we've lost by 1 run. It almost feels like words of a desperate man who feels his seat just got really hot.
I agree, Jim. I mean, you hear those comments. What did you think?
Well, I did laugh at I don't know who asked the question, but do you just wash it? That's like asking a guy who just rolled around in oil and tar and feathers if you want to if you're gonna wash that kind of I guess if you're if you're 10 games up in the division and you just had a stinker, then yeah, you could wash it. But when you're losing all these close games and then, that happens, it's going to be the exact opposite. It's nice to see. I'd be really curious to be, the proverbial fly on the wall in that clubhouse afterwards, because I think for me, there are times whenever you just have to go off a little bit and let guys know that this is not acceptable. This is not acceptable. And if it really comes down to execution, then we have to execute better. And I hope they laid into them a little bit. I don't know if Shelton even has that in him, though, to be quite honest with you.
I mean, Queen says she would have loved to have seen that energy a couple months ago. I totally agree with that. That's kind of what I'm getting at. This kind of speech that he just gave right now, that's what I wanted to hear instead of we got unlucky during that 10-game losing streak. That's what I wanted to hear right then. And even then, I would have felt like I really wanted to hear that back in June when nobody was doing anything offensively at all. They couldn't even small ball their way into runs. So
that's a really good point, Gary. It switched from, we're just unlucky. We've been unlucky. We haven't had a ball fall here or there. Well, you know what? That's still execution, regardless of how you look at it when you lose that many, which they had at that point.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, the Cubs, they really were on a heater. They just had a great series. Just the week before they came in, they were hot. I have no doubt that contributes highly to why they got hit so hard. That and Jared Jones just coming back from the IL, and I think they've seen Paul Skeens 3 times now. I mean, that matters. It really does. That matters in baseball. Mitch Keller does not look the same, and he falls in love with his cutter, and he gets lit up like a Christmas tree every time he uses it too much. These are things that I would hope Yasmani Grandal is solving, Jim. So all I want to hear is when Joey Bart is ready to come off the IL soon from this hamstring injury. I don't want any hemming and hawing about who goes off this roster for that, because superstar catcher didn't manage to get superstar pitchers to do superstar things during this series at any point in time. And he let 11 guys steal bases on?
I mean, they flat out embarrassed the Pirates with some of that stuff, right? Like we're very caught up in like the wins and losses and how it happened, like the end result. But like there were numerous things in this series that they really just outclassed the Pirates, and the Pirates just continue to do not all the little things, a lot of the little things wrong. And it just completely bites them in the ass so many times. And when you're not super talented, you don't have the talent level of some of these other teams, of course it's going to stick out to you more. Of course it is.
But I'll hear like people will say like, well, it's not on coaching. Who are they going to go to in that bullpen? You expect Nicholas to do better than he did, and you expect Chapman to do better than he did. Sure, 100%. I get that. You can even claim that there's some reason that you should still be expecting David Bednar to do well. I can't tell you that reality exists on Earth, but I can tell you that you're allowed to have that opinion. I can see that argument that he has nobody to go to in the bullpen, but there's other things that you can do. It shouldn't take you 9 or 10 stolen bases before you make some kind of a change. Maybe have the pitchers check on the runners a little more. Maybe use those throws that you get. It may look stupid and it may annoy you, but do it. Maybe have the catcher stand up and throw it to first every once in a while. Maybe actually, for once, follow through and throw to second and try to get that guy, because they know it's free at this point. First and third, you don't even bother saying they set up the double play anymore, Eric, when you see it happen.
Yeah. It's like, in Little League, first and third, kid's automatically on second base. It's what it's like now.
I mean, we're going to talk about Oneil Cruz later and the deal everyone made about that throw from center, to home. And I was thinking to myself, they weren't going to stop Pete Crow Armstrong from taking third anyway.
No.
Right.
Next play, he'd have been there.
Yep.
So who cares?
And Rob mentions in the comments the Cubs could add 30 steals if they wanted it. The game dictated.
I got to do better at putting their comments up instead of just letting you read them. I'm sorry.
You got lots going on. I'll just point them out. But no, I mean, like there were the one game they were up, they quit running. Yesterday they weren't running as much simply because they were down and they were trying to keep base runners on. So yeah, I mean, it's just even little things like, when's the last time you've seen a Pirate catcher try to catch a guy sleeping on the base pads?
No, never.
Throw behind him, to first.
Never. I saw Henry try to do it the other day, and then nobody was covering third. Jared Torello wasn't even at third base. He just threw it anyway. It almost turned into something bad, and it didn't. But
yeah,
I mean, that's the first extracurricular activity I've seen in any kind of effort to slow down the running game in a while. Something has to happen. Somebody has to try to manage that. Paul Skeens and Aroldis Chapman are the only people on the team that can manage the running game.
Yep.
That's it. And that's frightening. Because right now, that's like 6 innings a week of pitchers that actually know how to control the running game. So
yeah, it's just one of many things where you would figure if they could be buttoned up and trying to do things a little bit more differently. Even on the offensive side, they have a great success rate stealing. They just don't run. They don't run a lot. So, those
are things though that I think coaches can do. I mean,
Right.
like that's not just like picking bad bullpens or, you know, I actually sympathize with him. On you throw Nicholas and Chapman out there, you expect you're going to get to the end of that game. I get it. His mistake was maybe starting out with Ben Heller, or whatever. Like start out with like maybe somebody a little more seasoned than that because you really, really want to salvage this one game and not take risks.
Yeah.
So I mean, if
You-
you want to get on him, cool. But like some of it, do something about it. Do something about this running game. Like
Well,
you got to change something. Look over your shoulder more often.
I can't remember if it was last week or the week before when we were doing this. It's incredible that they just keep running Bednar out there. Like I just cannot fathom at this point, unless you're actively trying to get fired, it's a fireable offense. Like at this point, like you can't just keep throwing a guy out there who's not getting anybody out.
Yeah. I mean, Eric, it's a bit too on the nose. Okay. It's a bit too on the nose. But when you listen to a coach sit there and fall on his sword and say, we're not closing games out, we have to close games out, well, did anybody ask or did anybody, I know they have in the past, but did anybody freshly ask, what are we doing running Bednar out there all the time then? I mean, how have you not seen that's the issue yet?
That's a very fair question to ask. That he's the one that has the keys to that bullpen. He's seen these meltdowns. It's we just expect it now. He had a clean inning the other day, but it was nothing. But anything leverage, I don't know. I don't know how you can keep running them out there and then go sit and talk about, oh, we lost a close.
Especially if you're specifically citing closing games out.
Yeah.
I mean, like my first thing would be like, listen, David has done some great things here. We believe in David in the future. This is just for right now. This isn't working. We've got to do something. We've got to get him in the workshop. We got to help him get healthy, whatever the hell it is. I don't care. But you talk it up and sell it however you want, but do something.
He again, you hear this word with them, better. He said, we got to be better. Well, you got to be better too, dude. Like sometimes you need to be able to say, this is on me just as much as it is everybody else. I don't think you hear that from Derek Shelton ever. And I'm not saying it's something you want to hear a lot of, but dude, you ain't exactly setting the world on fire either with some of your decisions. So players need to execute.
I can say pretty definitively too, nobody has a gun to his head telling him that David Bednar has to be the closer. I'm just telling you that right now. They're only paying him a little over $4 million, like right now. And he will definitely not get a raise next year in arbitration. So, because he's had a god-awful year statistically. And if he is dumb enough to take them to arbitration instead of taking their $2.5 to $3 million tender offer, then he deserves to hear all the terrible things they're going to say to the hometown kid behind closed doors, because they are. And they're going to chapter and verse read to him everything you see on Twitter and worse. So this season has destroyed him unless he's smart enough to just sign something cheap and come back and realize he's not the incumbent closer.
Right.
He can earn it back.
Sure. It's funny. It's sounds great to have the hometown guy as your closer when everything's going well, for him specifically, not necessarily the Pirates. Sounds great to draft the quarterback from Pitt to play for the Steelers. I'm starting to get
such
that.
An evil comparison.
Yeah, I'm starting to get that
bastard,
vibe.
Jim.
Hey, listen, we're gonna go there today on everything. Wait till we get to the Oneil Cruz stuff. I can't wait. But yeah, I mean, like, it adds an extra element to things that make it kind of icky. And we are at that point past it with Bednar. And so, yeah, hey, listen, I'm not telling reporters how to do their jobs, but I would think that that's one of the first questions out of your mouth. If Shelton's
I
gonna
can't
be
believe
cranky.
somebody wouldn't have asked that. I
Yeah.
just didn't run across that clip or quote.
And maybe right after the game, it's not fair.
Yeah, maybe
know.
like the answer that you got was kind of nothing more than like a 2-word like or a shrug or something like that.
Yeah.
Something you can't print, you know, like
Right.
maybe he gave him the double barrel bird. I don't know. But like
Right.
I'm just saying, like
but it needs to be asked now. It needs to be asked tomorrow. It's
it's funny, Jim, because when there's a great story like Rowdy Tellez, where the team was really stubborn and played him when really he had no business being on a baseball field, and he works his way through it, and he comes out on the other side, and he becomes one of your most productive hitters. And everybody has to kind of eat a little bit of crow and be like, okay, yeah, the team was really patient. I wouldn't have been that patient. I never would have seen this production from Rowdy Tellez because I would have cut bait on it a long time ago. Every time something like that happens, it empowers them to do things like they're doing with David Bednar right now, where it doesn't make any sense. It's clear and identifiable, if nothing else. You can't possibly feel good about sending him out there and having him play. You know what I mean? Like, let's see.
Sure.
Noah Hiles, this is according to our buddy Michael. Shelton, when asked him about Bednar, will be used moving forward. I don't know what we're going to do with Bednar right now. Probably a little fresh. That's
okay.
what
So
says.
yeah.
Okay. So yeah, they got an answer, but it was basically like, not right now. That
Which makes
probably,
sense.
because it wasn't a knee-jerk yes, means that will probably be the last time we see him close out a game for a minute here, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Or he'll go on the IL because Holderman will come back, you know, and people will love seeing him be the replacement closer, but that's what's going to happen. And but like Derek Shelton, like at some point he's not making changes fast enough. Even with Rowdy, it took him too long to recognize Joe was hot and move away from Rowdy to Joe as more of like a percentage of playing time type thing. It takes him a little too long to realize that a starter is really, really struggling and it's time to go with somebody else. It takes him too long to warm to the task.
Well, I think that's I totally, and I think like what and Eric, you can weigh in on this too. Is like they're always placing process over winning, right? Like in patience and process, right? And so the things that other teams do because they're on a different schedule, you see that stuff happen more quickly. And I mean, Eric, do you notice that too? Is that something that bothers you when you're watching?
Absolutely. It feels like if you were nowhere near contention and you had a bunch of young kids and you're just going to let them work through it. You know, we're going to let them struggle. We're going to let them keep going. But, this team, especially coming into the trade deadline, that's not where this team was at. And it's felt like this the way they're still running the team.
I saw somebody said that somebody tweeted at me that the team had basically let the media talk them into making some trades at the deadline. I didn't get that impression at all. I think Isaiah Kiner Falefa is a direct response to having no idea what to expect from Brian Hayes and an inkling that they were going to do what they did with Oneil Cruz, which is our next subject, which I really want to start out with. Why in the world did they tell us? I think it was on, let's see.
Like a week ago.
Let's see. When did they do this? On August 18th, Ben Cherington said about Oneil Cruz, all I can tell you right now is he's our shortstop. Ben Cherington on August 26th, Oneil is moving to center. All I want to know is what happened in those couple days. Like, and it's not like they just saw Oneil do something that is just like, I can't ever see that again. Because we've seen those all year long. And I just don't understand how he goes from vote of confidence. I think if he had more question marks in that other one, I'm like, okay, it's something they're teetering on or thinking about. This felt out of the blue to everyone, including people that cover the team every day and would have seen him working out there if it was even being considered. That's weird to me. I think we should take a break and come back and really dive into everything Oneil Cruz.
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it.
At DK Pittsburgh Sports, we take pride in coverage that connects our city's fans to their favorite teams. Now, that connection's stronger than ever. Introducing our all-new state-of-the-art app. Find expert inside reporting and original podcasts. Check live box scores. Track the latest stats. Chat it up with our community of thousands of fans, all in one place. The new app from DK Pittsburgh Sports. Coverage that connects.
All right, welcome back to the Pirates Fan Forum here on DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network. I want to do Oneil Cruz right now. We're going to do Jim's poll question about Oneil Cruz. Our Call Your Shot today is going to come from one of those awesome comments that he received. And then I want to finish our show with a great comment I see from Ray in our chat. And I want to do that specifically because I want to think about what could actually be changed about certain things here. Oneil Cruz, Jim, you put out a poll real quick right after this came out. You got instant raw reaction, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Do you agree with the decision to move Oneil Cruz from shortstop to center field? 62.6% said yes. 37.4% said no. 430 votes, well populated like most of your polls are. So what did you think? Did that go the way you thought it would? I think if I were to put this out, I think I might have a different mix. I think I would probably have a lot of people that would lean no, and it would be basically about the timing.
Yeah, I was a little surprised. I thought it would be a little more even. Maybe not a ton, but I definitely thought we might see it be a little maybe 55-45, somewhere in that range. That surprised me a little bit. It surprised me too, like from what I've gathered from the comments, is like Cruz had no idea it was coming. IKF had no idea it was coming. It's like, they're almost operate in their little ivory tower and do what they want to do, make a decision, and then just come down and tell everybody. And I think that's a problem that I have too, is like, where's the communication on some of this stuff too? You talk about player centric, that's the antithesis of that. So yeah, I think overall, like, I could see, I thought you'd give him time. And I get it. They want to see what it looks like now. I just think that, like, man, wait until there's a better time for it than just trying to do it right smack dab in August. And it seems like they hadn't really, nobody had seen him out there doing these things. He wasn't like prepping for it all that much. They gave him a day or two to DH, and then they threw him out there. And so, like, you're doing the player a disservice when you do that stuff too, I think.
I mean, unless he looks like he can handle it. And so far, he has looked like pretty much like he can handle it. I haven't seen him do anything that scared me yet. I expect to. But I guess I'm not going to accuse them of being wrong until they prove to me they should be.
It still may work out.
I think it's probably the best place on the field to try him, as far as like you can still keep him at a premium position. Maybe one where the arm plays a little bit less often, but it's more important when it does. Eric, what did you think about the move, first of all?
I don't mind him playing center, but I thought the timing was odd. I really thought it was odd that Michael Taylor was on waivers, and he's your center fielder, and then we're moving a shortstop to center field, and the only guy you have that can really cover short is Kiner Falefa. You have
And
nobody.
center fielder is using Michael Taylor's glove.
Is he really?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
It's really interesting. Yeah.
It worked for Triolo for a catch at least.
But it
Yeah,
was
I
to
don't
me,
know.
it's odd. The way it was handled seems odd. Him being surprised by it definitely could have been handled a lot differently. I don't hate the move though. I think
agree.
he'll
I think
eventually
it was wild card
succeed.
dependent. So
Yeah, I
yeah,
mean,
that makes some sense.
there could have been some of that. I think like the other aspect to this is, and we'll stay on Cruz because we got more to cover with it, but IKF, shortstop, yeah, can he play it? Yeah. Is he going to make more routine plays than Cruz? Probably. But he's not setting the world. He hasn't set the world on fire when he's played shortstop. So I think like, and is any of this indicative of the line thinking, well, we're not going to be able to get a center fielder, so we'll move Cruz there because we've been thinking about it anyway, and we can insert IKF at short. I don't know, man. I don't know.
I don't know what to make of it because I don't think I think shortstop is probably IKF's worst spot. I think he's a better third baseman and second baseman, probably even center fielder than he is shortstop. So I was a little puzzled by that. Timing of this move also really forces Jared Triolo into a permanent starting spot. He's the third baseman until Brian Hayes potentially would return. So a guy that has already gotten all season up here and hasn't done much with it. I will say he is starting to sting the ball a little bit better. Jim and I have been talking about that for a couple weeks now. It still does look like ET. I hope everyone did go and look at ET next to him when he's hitting and see what I mean by the way his legs bend all weird, and I don't know what to make of it. I've never seen anybody swing a baseball bat like that. It's like Jim Furyk swinging a golf club. It's strange, but it works. So whatever. He's hitting the ball harder. He's pretty much your starter, though. I mean, making that move, and I don't know that I would have done that right now. I think I would have left IKF over there and probably just let Cruz finish out the season at short and approach that this winter. That said, I think Cruz has the talent to do this. I'm interested to see it. It hasn't scared me yet. I have a feeling it will.
It's interesting. I'm looking at Triolo because I was like, I wonder how many at-bats he has this year. It seems like a lot. 305 at bats. I'd have guessed it had been higher. I guess maybe
he's been on the team all year.
So,
yeah.
So that surprised
right?
me a little bit. I would have thought that it was higher than that. So I don't know. I think like moving forward, is it probably the best decision to get Cruz to center field? Yeah, I do. I think he'll acclimate. But what I'm really afraid of is just all this interpreting every little single thing he does as whether he's happy or disgruntled or just lazy or checked out or whatever. So and boy, God forbid you make a joke on Twitter. My goodness. People take tweets way too seriously sometimes when you're clearly trying to be sarcastic.
I mean, I'll tell you what it opens a path for, if you ask me. It opens a path that I thought was completely shut off for a guy like Liover Peguero. He can field the position. He hasn't lit the world on fire this year, but he has hit the ball pretty consistently. He's had a pretty consistent season. He can at least defend there. He's at least easily better than Alika Williams. If it came down to a competition of which one of them lasted on the roster, I would say Peguero at 23 years old wins. It potentially gives him a spot to play up here, even now. it's a move they could even make at the September call-up period and get him there and move IKF over to third base. So maybe this will be short-lived, this Triolo starting trip. Or maybe
Could
he'll
be.
hit. Maybe he'll hit, Eric. And then all of a sudden we're like, okay, ET is hitting 7.
I don't think he's going to hit. I think it's short-lived. His peripherals have never shown that he can hit. He's always out hit his numbers, you know what I mean? And great defender. He's a great bench guy. I don't think he needs to start. You know, same with Nick Gonzalez. I think he's a good bench guy. I don't think he should be starting 5 days a week, 6 days a week.
I think that's part of the problem too, is like other teams had IKF and they found out that he wasn't probably good enough to do that specifically, right? So you put him in that super utility role, and boy, he's great at that. By the way, I like him. He's just a solid ball player.
I like him. I like the acquisition of him. I don't like their usage of him.
Right. The Pirates get him, and we're like, well, we'll just start him at shortstop.
We get him, and he's hitting cleanup or leading off and playing shortstop. Like,
yeah, we elevate him to something else. 2 teams have already figured out probably aren't the best thing. It's not the best thing for him.
This isn't Trey Turner.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So again, you know, are you solving one problem and creating another one? Maybe 2.
Could be.
You could ask that question if that's a fair one.
Yeah, you could be. I mean, it's something that I'm considering, because I think Cruz really could be good in center field. I have no problem with trying him out there. I always maintained that I thought at some point he would bulk out of being able to play shortstop, even if he did master it.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So I always thought, in other words, I thought he was always going to have that eventual move to third base or DH or first base or whatever happens to guys that used to play shortstop that can't anymore, and you still want them to hit. So I saw that coming anyway, just at his size. So I guess I never cared that he was going to get moved eventually. I knew that was going to happen. So I'm not upset about that. When, though, is a little strange, I will say. I don't know that I would have pulled it in this fashion. I certainly would have given him a little bit more of a runway into it. You know, that said, maybe they didn't think he would fully be able to focus on it if they allowed it to linger at shortstop any longer or whatever. But and maybe they didn't think he could just DH forever. It's hard to say everything. When you really start thinking about this, I could probably convince myself of anything. At the end of the day, I just want to watch it happen now.
Yeah, and to put him at DH at this point in his career, when he does have all this athleticism, is premature, right? I mean, and DHing isn't for everybody. So you're taking a guy that wants to be playing shortstop and is super involved, and all of a sudden now you're just telling him he's going to DH. I think that does him a disservice, and I think like you aren't fully exploring the options with him too.
Now, what does this do to the outfield picture then next year? Because you have to figure any kind of chance Ji-Hwan Bae had of sticking on this 40-man or 26-man probably just fell out the window. Because if he was going to stick, it was going to be because he turned into a defensive-minded center fielder with some speed who could get on base a little bit. Now, I don't know what you're doing with him. That's not a right fielder's profile. He's never, ever going to be a second baseman on this team. Not good enough at the double play turns, doesn't have the range, doesn't have the arm, which is part of his problem in the outfield. The bats never come along. I think he's a guy that's probably in trouble now, right? I mean, like, that seems to be pretty logical, right?
I would think so. You know, you can only give a guy so much of a look, and he really just, aside from a couple, you know, great plays in the outfield and a little bit of power right when he first came up, that's been it. That's really been it. You know, he can't handle anything high in the zone, fastballs up to the up at the letters or at the
Yeah.
top of the zone. He cannot handle it. If you cannot handle that in Major League Baseball these days, forget about it.
I
You
can't
know,
help but feel like that's a kid that is going to go somewhere else, and they're going to turn him into Stephen Kwan.
could
And
it very well could.
I really feel like he's really good coaching away from doing something. There's a lot to like about him, and I think there's a lot that you could use him for. I just don't think anybody has really taken the time to actually say you're a center fielder. Get really good at being a center fielder. That's all you have to do. Do this. We want you to bunt. We want you to hit the ball on the ground. Launch angle doesn't mean anything to you. You know, like
All right.
that,
forget
that sort of thing.
everything. Forget everything that people are saying is important in baseball right now. It
Yeah.
doesn't suit your game.
It's gonna
I
sound
guess-
terrible, but I want him to play like a Korean player. I want him to slap singles. I want him to know exactly where he's hitting a ball with his bat. If he needs it to go to the left side, I need him to be that kind of technician at the plate. That's what I'm expecting from him to maximize his skill set. And I don't see it happening here, not with this coaching.
No, and I think too, like speaking of the outfield, like bigger picture is like defensively, are we really going to be rolling with Reynolds in left, Cruz in center, and De La Cruz in right? I mean, is that something you really can feel confident about defensively?
I like De La Cruz
Boy.
in right, and I like his arm. I think that defensively, I'm happy with De La Cruz. I really am. I think he's a better left fielder than he is right fielder. Honestly, it's what he's always played his whole
He's
life.
got a big arm. I mean,
He has a big arm. I like it out there, actually. Reynolds is a question, though. Is it time, Eric, for Yark to get his dream and move Brian Reynolds to
First base. Eventually, it's going to be. I don't think it's yet.
It's either that or
Oh.
DH, and you can see they really want to DH him a couple times a week. So
Yeah.
I think
You know,
we're
that-
already
that-
seeing them wanting to get his glove off the field, and I don't believe it ought to be for rest.
No. Yeah.
Jim doesn't want anybody moved to first base because he believes they're born, not created.
They're born, not created.
Yes.
Gary, as you are saying that, I am sitting here right now, drifting off, thinking that about Brian Reynolds playing first base and how that might look and can he do it. So like, yes, exactly. Maybe they do want to start taking care of Brian Reynolds a little bit though, right?
It would make sense. They have a decent amount of contract left. He's really not a premium defender in the outfield, although I think he's better than the defensive run saved numbers make you feel. You know what I mean? But if you start thinking about some things going into next season, and I mean, before we do that, we should finish up Oneil Cruz, Jim. You have a comment that you're going to read here. That's going to be our call your shot. We should take care of business there first, and then we'll talk a little bit more about the rest of the outfield. Okay.
All
Here's
right.
the intro.
So, okay. So, as I understand it, first of all, I got two things. One is the poll, and I believe that's what we were going to attach the call your shot segment to.
Yep.
All right. So, I went ahead and back to the poll, and I picked somebody for two reasons. One, the name, the handle on the account was just so good that I couldn't not give him some props. So Jared Jones's chest hair says, I'm hesitant about it, meaning Cruz, because he has a hell of an arm. But center field is the most important outfield spot. I'd have felt more comfortable if they started the experiment in a spring training setting. So, yeah, I thought that was fair. So, Jared Jones' chest hair takes the cake for several reasons on this.
All right. And Jared Jones' chest hair will be the recipient of a discount at our sponsors, shopyins.com. They sponsor call your shot every week on the show, and we really appreciate them. So, Jim, it's your job now to DM and or reply tweet to Jared Jones chest hair, because you've created this relationship, and tell him that he won.
I'd be honored.
He or she, I should say.
This is true.
Yeah, we don't know. Jared Jones chest hair could be female. I don't know.
This is true. a lot of weird kinks out there these days. So
I mean, it depends. It depends. But regardless, let's talk a little bit about this situation, though, what he just said. As I assume he again. I think in spring training, here's why I guess I'm okayer with it, seeing it now. Spring training in Bradenton is not a fun place to play outfield for anybody.
Good point.
Like, I think Willie Mays would probably make a few errors in center field at Bradenton. It's the wind swirls, it gusts, it blows in, it knocks balls down, it lifts balls up. It's a very, very hard place to learn how to play outfield. I'm not 100% sure I want to see that for the first time ever. I'd like to maybe get a little bit of a picture this year if I think he can handle it before that's my first experience watching it. If only because I've seen really, really good fielders look like crap there. So I don't know. That's my opinion there.
No, it's a valid point. Like, you don't want to give him fly ball anxiety right off the bat, which is what you get in those types of settings. So it's a fair point.
Eric, what do you think?
Yeah, I actually like him doing it now more than spring training. At first, my first impression was odd to do it now, but the more I thought about it, maybe get your feet wet before you walk into spring training a little bit. And he comes in knowing I am already an outfielder. I've done it a little bit, and yeah, especially, and then the win thing, that's a good point too.
So Doug Smith here says, so Cruz is getting real season reps, but how good is the coaching? I guess it's center field 101, and that can't be too challenging. Well, I mean, how good have they made Ji-Hwan Bae? I would say they're both gifted with similar speed sets, and they both have an infielder background. And I don't know that I've seen major strides from Ji-Hwan Bae. I think I saw some better paths to balls this year than I did in last season with him. I still see him probably miss too many balls that he actually gets to and just doesn't manage to wrap his glove around. But I don't know if that's coaching as much as just, dude, maybe needs glasses. I don't know. But like,
he just did that the other day.
Yeah, I mean, but like, I don't know. I don't think they've turned him into an outfielder. I think they've tried to, but I haven't seen it. I think they've done a good job with Connor Joe. Honestly, he wasn't very good in the outfield when he played in Colorado. They have a huge outfield in Colorado, so that kind of makes some sense. He's handled the Clemente wall pretty well, and he has a pretty strong arm that's pretty accurate. I think he does okay out there. Brian De La Cruz hasn't looked any worse. Brian Reynolds has, but I don't know. I don't even understand the measurements, really. When I watch Brian Reynolds play, I don't see a bad outfielder.
Yeah, it's weird. Well, first of all, his arm's been
Going
much better.
Everyone else says, because the numbers are the numbers.
Right.
But I don't see him as a bad outfielder. In fact, I think he's really good at cutting balls off and holding guys to singles or doubles when maybe they had a shot for a triple or a double.
I think he's done a really good job of improving the things he could have improved, which is, like you said, cutting things off, making stronger throws, at least trying to be better in those areas. I do think when you watched Oneil Cruz the other day, and they pointed it out on the broadcast, is like he definitely on his throw home, it was a shortstop throw from center field. He's got things to work on, and hopefully they'll work on him. I mean, hey, you still got Michael Taylor on your team. I would hope that they're letting him do quite a bit with him, or that they will while he is here. Because I mean, if there's one thing he does now,
for all accounts, he's that kind of guy too that probably would.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Kutcher's a guy who's got some experience out there too. That while he can't run it anymore, he should be able to show, hey, things I looked for. You know, hey, I've always wished I was taller. Look, look what I could have done out here if I was. You know, like something like that. That's a great mentor to have out there. I'm actually
Sure.
less worried about Oneil giving this effort though than a lot of people seem to. It kind of came out. I think the fan and in particular came directly at whether he would even try, or that they were like souring the relationship so bad. That's another thing I kept hearing. Like, oh, there's no chance we're going to extend him now. Well, why would you want to? What has he done that makes you want to so far? You still don't know where he's playing. You've seen a potential bat that hasn't given you a full season yet. You know, now what I've seen this last month, hell yeah, sign me up. But I'm just figuring out whether he can even play a position for me. Like, I don't even know how you approach that right now. Do you? I mean, you could probably maybe try to go get him cheap, Eric, but is that smart right now? And cheap
I don't
is
think.
relative. Let's say 15 million.
And not if you don't know where you're going to play him. And if he ends up being a DH, that's an awfully expensive DH. I do personally think he's going to flourish in the outfield, and I think he's going to love it there. But that's a big gamble.
It is.
Well,
I mean, Jim, what did you think? Because I know you were laughing at some of these comments that you were getting and everything, and you put out some sarcastic tweets and got expected results, which I loved. And
can we just hit a couple of those real quick?
oh, please do, yeah.
So yeah, like we're watching the game, and it's Cruz's first start in center, and so I throw out this tweet, which is, I mean, am I wrong? This is 100% satire and just totally overboard. I put out Oneil Cruz out there just laughing in center field after making his first catch. Clearly doesn't take this seriously. I'm so done with this guy and his attitude. DFA this guy today.
Now, how many times did you get called Greg Brown in about 10 minutes?
Well, I mean, like it was just an off the cuff thing. I really didn't mean for it to be some social experiment. But then the more I sat there and I thought about it, I'm like, this is incredible. Either people are taking this tweet seriously and saying I'm insane, which is scary because I thought it was so over the top. But what got really scary is people started agreeing with me and like helping double down on that insane take.
Right.
So, it's
like, always the way, man. Like, if you're going to make a Nazi joke, you better make sure you use the sarcasm emoji. I don't know what to say.
It's just like I couldn't believe that people started to go with it. I guess, are we just so broken as society and Pirate fans that like no one can tell the difference anymore?
No, I mean, like what happens a lot is like you get these there's these social media cape wearers, I call them. They just fly in whenever they see any kind of sign of something they see as social injustice, and they got to fly in and make sure that they set the record straight. And they don't know you at all. They don't know that you follow the Pirates because they don't follow the Pirates. Just somebody told them, "Hey, a Latino is in trouble," and they all descend on Twitter and they make sure that they come down on Jim Stamm. How dare you, sir? And then you're like, yeah, you don't know me. Like, this is funny.
Right. I didn't even bother to correct some of them because I thought that was funny too. But
that's social media anymore, man. Like I put out that whole big tweet about like the Pirates scoring only 23 runs, Cubs scoring 41. Real long-winded tweet, as long-winded as you can get for free, FYI. Someone replies to me, I guess we're not allowed to criticize Nutting. When the hell did I tell you that? When the hell did I say you can't criticize? I don't give a shit. He ain't my uncle. He's not leaving me anything in his will. I could care less if you criticize him. You're wasting your breath. He's not going anywhere. And it doesn't matter if you go to games or not. If you want to make a joke of yourself and come up with a line that you put under every article written about the Pirates and everything ever tweeted about the Pirates, about not going to games and we're part of the problem and shit. If that's what's fun for you, I'm not interested. I'm just not. Just like I'm not interested in the people that are like, that aged well. Well, fuck off. I don't care if you liked it or not. I didn't put it out for you. I certainly don't need you fact checking my guess at how something stupid would happen later. That's why I don't bet.
Well, maybe.
I
Well, Gary,
use
maybe
Twitter. I could care
maybe
less.
this is why maybe this is why I'll keep going the troll route. It was far more entertaining. You know, I
think so.
Well, you know, and so we had the people that like you said, the Warriors came to Cruz's defense, which good for you. But then there were people like, hold on, Jim's on to something. I gotta have his back on this one. DFA Cruz. These are I'm not gonna name the names because I don't know these people, but so here's some of the comments I got. Yeah, but he's gonna pout and be a liability there too. He's
Anthony
gonna
Filipponi.
He's gonna think if I suck in center, they'll put me back at short. That's interesting. How about this one? This organization is shameful. It's a disgrace. I've been to Dollar Generals in the ghetto, ran better than the Pirates. Now that part may be true.
I love it.
Here's another one. He isn't an intelligent person, period. Typical DR native. You know this person couldn't pick out the DR on a map.
Do you understand though
this.
that like as crappy as that comment is, that is exactly what people hear when Greg Brown says like he really didn't hustle there. Do you understand? It's that's
right.
That's where we are going wrong as a society, people. And we're bringing our stupid political crap to sports. Let's just have honest conversations about baseball players playing freaking baseball. And let's stop making a deal out of their ethnicities. Like, I know earlier I just said in a very harmless way, I want Ji-won Bae to play more like a Korean player. I mean the way that Korean players are coached to play.
Yeah.
I don't mean like his race. I mean like the way that they actually coach their players to play.
It's actually a compliment.
Yes. I want Dominican players to play with the way they do. They have a lot of flash and brash and they love that kind of dynamic, energetic baseball. That's the kind of baseball they play. That's their brand of baseball. Japanese, very orderly, very respectful, very like organized in every
fundamentally sound,
fundamentally buttoned up. So I mean, like their stereotypes are real for a reason, but like some of these people, like they're just trying to bait you. But nobody can be that stupid as to put something out like that has more than like 17 followers. You know what I mean? Like,
I'll have to. I should have looked at the timeline on that one. It was probably an absolute horror show.
But like that's their whole point for being there. That said, you're absolutely right when you talk about like throughout the game, they are maligned. There are people that have feelings about
these
Dominican and Latin players.
Yeah,
right away. They think they look lazy from the moment they get here, and it's like. You haven't seen him even walk yet. You don't know what he is. Like if guys don't need to sprint to center field. People don't need to be like Jared Hughes on the way in from the bullpen for you to think they care. Brian Reynolds every once in a while will take a strike right down the heart of the plate and spit on home plate. I mean, like, can you imagine if Cruz did that?
There's plenty of times Brian Reynolds, if you only cut snippets of it, you would think, boy, this guy, he doesn't care. He didn't even smile. Meanwhile, Oneil Cruz smiles, he scowls, he does. It's always interpreted the wrong way. Here's the last comment I got is someone said after that comment, she said, "Same here." In other words, everything I said, man, I just nailed it. My husband defends him. I can't stand him.
I don't understand it, especially the way he's been hitting, Jim. He's hitting lefties, he's hitting righties, and all I'll see is that he strikes out too much. He's also hitting like 380 something in the past like 7 games, 340 in the 15 before that, 333 in the 30 before that. The dude's crushing it. Like
even in the game the other day, first center field start, throws the ball over 100 miles an hour. He takes a change up the opposite way for 112 miles per hour exit velocity. Things that
right.
like if you've ever swung a bat, I don't even know how that's possible, but he did it. And it's like you've got all these special things. Is he making mistakes? Yes. But to turn it into this kind of stuff, man, that's wow. Oh man, Twitter. What a place that is.
I mean, it's been nuts, and it's made the whole Cruz situation super interesting. I think we talked our way through that pretty good. Very happy about that. All in all, I think we all agree. Pretty decent move to center field. We all think it has a chance to work. It's least questionable about when they did it, but we're excited to see it anyway, right? Yeah, Henry Davis is back. Now, what can't they do with Henry Davis? They must resist the urge to sit him, right? If he's here, he has to play.
Mm-hmm.
So how much longer do you entertain the idea of Yasmani Grandal having to catch everybody? I mean, I think I would probably be letting that go right about now. Maybe Skeens, I'd let it exist if only because of the weird way he hits when he's catching him. But I don't think we need to play the game where he needs to be personal catcher for everybody that matters.
Eric, go.
No, it's time for him to go. I mean, Skeens is going to have to learn to pitch to a different pitch or a different catcher anyways, because he's not going to be around next year. He's not doing anything on the field worth rostering him at this point. And
I think
we need to see Henry. We really need to see if his bat has came around. If he's going to be able to, catch 3, 4 days, 5 days a week, whatever. It's you have to now. He was down long enough. It's time for him to just sink or swim.
I think that he performed enough in AAA both times that he's been there now, Jim, that you got to give him a stretch up here again. And I don't think you're giving him a fair shake at getting the offensive kinks knocked out if he's not hitting, 2-3 days consecutively. You can't be having him play a game, sit, play a game, sit, play a game. Can't work that way.
Sure.
Like he needs to be in there playing. And I think that they're going to have to get creative with that even when Bart comes back. So there are some weird things they're going to have to think about doing with Henry. I'm not as concerned about the catching, except his pop time is so much better than anybody else that they've had on this roster all year long, including Joey Bart. And the way teams are running on the Pittsburgh Pirates, there's a big part of me that would rather Bart be the DH than Henry. And I mean that.
Yeah, if it was me, Henry would be playing 5 days a week right now.
In some way, shape, or form.
Some way, shape, or form. And preferably most of those games catching. Then you want to give him a day as a DH, whatever. Bart, I give Grandal a nice pat on his back and say thanks for your services, and that's about it. Although ironically, Grandal has decided to start hitting a little bit here as the season has wound down. But look, man, you're telling me you want to see Oneil Cruz in center every day. I want to
Right.
see Henry Davis catching every day. I want to see what it looks like. It's time. You
Roy,
can't say it in one spot and not the other.
Roy Baldwin here, he puts up this this question that I thought was great earlier. When you have a lack of talent, are you not forced to be more patient? DK has pushed this narrative hard all season. They have a lack of talent. I would agree. And I think this is ultimately, Jim, why we're going to wind up falling on a coaching change at the end of this year. Because when you really, really look at this roster, there's not a lot that's going to change going into next year. There's really not. If you think about Oneil Cruz as a center fielder, which they're definitely going to go into next year now thinking is the case, correct?
Correct.
So you're going to go in with Oneil Cruz, Brian Reynolds in left field. Brian De La Cruz is going to come back next year. And they're going to expect him to hit 20 home runs or so like he has for the Marlins every single year that he's been there. So they think they've got something here that's arbitration ready and cheap that's going to hit 20 home runs that they can run out there at least against left-handed pitching, right?
Right.
You have to think Jack Sawinski's getting another shot. That's too many home runs to pretend it's just going away. This whole season's been a waste. If he can show that he comes back the spring next year looking like anything, okay, there's another guy. Maybe you've already got your right field platoon in-house right there. Let's not worry about the fringes of the roster. You don't have a first baseman that isn't named Connor Joe right this second. Maybe you have Andy Rodriguez coming back from an injury. You got Henry Davis and Joey Bart coming back at catcher. You got Brian Hayes coming back at third base, and you know it's happening. Shortstop, I guess you have Isaiah Connor Falefa. And second base is Nick Gonzalez. Maybe you have like somebody like Nick York or Billy Cook or Peguero or whatever come up here. And maybe they play first base. Maybe they sign a first baseman. Where are all these changes coming from? Because I could do that exact same walk through the pitching rotation and the bullpen and tell you they've got most of the team in-house. Where's the change isn't going to come from the players. And a new GM wouldn't come in here and do all that much different. I really don't think. Derek Shelton's the one that's got to change, if anything. What do you think, Eric?
Yeah, I agree. It took me a little bit to get on the boat of him needing to go. I thought Haynes needed to go and Shelton could stay, but I don't think he's the coach to take this team to the next level. He definitely hasn't shown it. I question a lot of his decisions, his bullpen decisions specifically. It has to change. The message has to change. It's not right. You can see it in the players. I don't think he's the guy to do it.
I mean, Jim, that's where I ultimately fall on. I think right now what you're watching is a 1.5 month long audition of what Derek Shelton can do with what Ben Cherington thinks is a winning baseball team. And if that team doesn't win, I think ultimately Ben Cherington's either got to admit he was wrong, and then there got to be some big player changes. Like you're going to have to do some shakeups. Some guys that we think are going to be here can't be here, right? They're going to have to move something. Or you admit that your coach isn't coaching said talent well enough to retain his job. That, to me, smells an awful lot like what they're going to do. Because the alternative is to come in next year going, well, we just basically want everything that happened last year to just be a little better. That's what you would do. That's what you would be doing, because you're talking about the way that I just drew that up. Be real. Best case scenario, you get a first baseman, and I could see a shortstop being on the table, but they ain't going to pay for a good one there.
Right.
So, yeah. Where's this upgrade coming from? It's going to be improvement internally, isn't it? That smells like a coaching change a lot more than a GM change to me. Because GM is going to come in here and the only thing they could do is trade one of the bigger assets. Like, they wouldn't trade Paul Skeens, but you could see them doing like a Jared Jones type thing for some hitter.
Yeah, or moving somebody that is attractive in the minor leagues, but even then you're only going to get so much for that unless you're really talking, a couple guys that you really value. So
if they drag us kicking and screaming for another 2 years and they finally get to the playoffs and then it's sustainable, let's say it like actually lives on 2032, we're like, oh man, I can't believe we were complaining back then in 2024. If I knew this is how it was going to turn out, how many years would you have to get into the future to forgive them for losing, for 5 or 6 years to get there? I'm asking because like we're all telling them what the timeline should be. And we're up in arms that it wasn't this year. You know what I mean? I think they said competitive. It was a vague word. We probably took it more seriously than they did, unfortunately, as often as they said it. Next year, most of us had them in a much better position. James Littleton, famously on this show, over and over again, has always smacked us in the face with it being 2025. He's been doing that for years, right?
Mm-hmm.
What if that's just the case? It's just a wait, and it's going to grow here, and that's all there is to it, and screw you, big middle finger. You want it faster. Sorry, it ain't happening.
No, it wouldn't surprise me at all if that's what they're thinking.
Even then, my point is, wouldn't you want a better coach to try to make it happen faster? Because if I think this team could be competitive, it wasn't. So where did the failure happen?
Yeah, I think what we're looking at is a month of really important baseball, at least for this conversation. Because if the bottom really does fall out, then yeah, I think they might actually do it. Otherwise, I think they're going to slog through with a lot of the same names. Andy Haynes is going to get the pink slip, I think, and then it just is a matter of how ugly does it get from here on out.
Yeah, I mean, Eric, what could change this narrative? Let's say like the last month they catch fire. Oneil Cruz keeps hitting almost 400, and Brian Reynolds never slows down, and Brian Hayes comes back from his back injury for the last 3 weeks and hits the baseball. And all the stars align, and all the luck that Derek Shelton didn't get, he finally gets.
No,
He's not enough with his
think
wife, FYI. So he doesn't deserve anymore.
I feel like maybe this year we definitely all felt maybe they were better than they actually were. I definitely feel the front office didn't think they were probably that good. I think they showed that at the trade deadline. They didn't go get anybody big. Maybe Ben Cherington is said, 25. Maybe it's a 6 or a 7 year plan. We were wanting it to be less. But I think this was a good litmus test for the coaching staff of the team starting to be good. Can you limit?
What are you doing with it, right?
Can you limit the bad and excel at the good? And I don't think he's done well with it.
I don't either. Jim, we got to wrap this up. We're getting long in the tooth, but it's been a fun year either way. I think we'll probably look back on it after we're done. We'll get into sometime in November, and we'll really be able to digest this season, and we'll find ways to see it positively. But the way that it has finished here, I don't know that I'm going to be able to get past not making any changes. So that to me is it's got to happen. Something's got to change. Do you think it was a good sign that they fired those international farm people? Do you think that's a good indicator that we're probably in the mood for change?
I don't know. Sometimes things just have to smack them in the face before they ever do anything, and maybe it was just time for that with this one. Even so, those changes, you're talking years and years and years down the road before we ever see if they even make a difference. Right. So, yeah, you know, these next 30 days, we're about to see whether that clubhouse and whether that manager and the players specifically, if they feel like playing baseball anymore the rest of the way. I think it's a big question.
Yeah, I would agree. All right. I hope that we said something that Livy Dunn likes and we end up going viral, just like, you know, how she didn't like the way that game went and she went viral for her comment. You know, I hope that I've said something that either pisses her off or makes her happy and this show just takes off nationally. That would be amazing, Jim. We could quit our jobs. Eric would have to climb out of the woods and join the show full time.
Not after your insulting Korean comment. Not now.
Oh, I'm
Oh
definitely
yeah, you'll be canceled.
You
I'm
totally
definitely
ruined
canceled
it.
for that for sure. I also
Thanks.
enjoy Korean barbecue.
Hey.
So let's just say that. And Texan barbecue. I don't like North Carolina barbecue. If that makes me racist, I apologize. Just not a mustard person.
Too much vinegar and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, just not a mustard person. Just yeah, not my favorite. But anyways, hey, I know it's been a rough stretch of baseball here. I do think they need to make some changes, but it's good that we're still able to have a nice civil conversation every once in a while about some things that are actually happening on the baseball field. So the Oneil Cruz conversation was interesting to me because there was a lot of on-field angles to that I think kind of got glazed over for off-field issues. And I think we really, really should have focused a lot more on what's actually happened on the baseball field and how it changes their needs drastically for next year. It changes what they're looking for in free agency, and I think it could make things easier for them. So let's really take some time and think about that before we decide whatever this is, good or bad. Do that in life and you'll be a lot happier, FYI. So thanks everybody. Let's toss it off to Ben. Eric,
thanks, buddy.
Great.
Hey, thank you guys. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, you're always good, man. And Jim, thanks for making the time and flowing over with me. There's a lot to talk about this time.
Very good, bud.
Let's go, Bucks!
Yeah, buddy. All right, thanks everybody.